Hey there, I'm Michael Damon, and I'm introducing the world to starbeam.one. In this session, we ask, what did you do, Mikey? A short look at my work history. Let's begin. I'm going to first start with my high school aspirations. I wanted to be a comic book artist and wanted to be a penciler. And this is before I got into computers or HTML or anything like that. But Stephen Platt is just someone I worshipped, and I still do. I just think he's an unbelievable artist, and that's what I modeled my work after. And every piece of work that you see there is a reference from Stephen Platt. So I took the comic and then just did reference from there, and you could see. I mean, it's old school lead, right? You can still see the pencil marks from my hand from the lead smearing. But it's just that's something I wanted to do, and why I'm mentioning it or why I feel it's important is because with starbeam.one, this is what I want to do. I wanted to get back to this penciling and doing it in a digital way, combining it with my writing and making it so that it's a product that I sell. From there, I continued the drawing a bit, and I actually did try to create my first comic book, and I got to page 3, and I realized very quickly that I was outmatched. Being a comic book artist, you have to draw more than just characters. You have to draw everything. You have to draw the world and build a world, and it was just outside of my skill set at the time. And the other thing is that I was in college, and that became a focus, but also HTML, right? This whole notion, this whole concept of being able to post content to this thing that anyone in the world could see if they knew the address, and even better, if you get listed on a search engine, they could find it with keywords and whatnot. It was such an intriguing concept to me, and it still is. Still just a wonderful and amazing concept, and I just fell in love with the HTML, being able to post that content, whatever that context and syntax was. That's what I wanted to do, right? And so I had this gaming. I was playing games, Doom and Doom 2, LAN parties with friends, such a fun time. And I combined them. I combined them into this website, this Doom Shack, and that's what you see there is this a QR code will take you there. You could get see it for how I designed these websites. The last capture there, and I'll get into a story about that in a little bit. But what I did was I went to this website, ftp.cdrom.com, and all these maps were being uploaded by these level designers and for free, right? No one was getting paid for this. And I played every single one. I played every single one of these maps, and I took the best of them, and I put it on this website that I was learning to build with HTML. And, I became a curator in hindsight. And, I didn't know what that was at the time. That's what I was. I was a curator for all of these maps. The best of the best made it on this site, and it became a thing to get listed there. And these maps, kind of just a short point is that it was like a work of art in its own right, right? Like your world building, right? Sort of like a comic book artist, but just the Doom engine was so advanced for its time, an 8-bit engine, and but still it was you're able to really develop these universes in them, and it's sort of like the metaverse, right? I kind of look at it as the metaverse, but prettier and more violent. That's kind of how I look at it. But that's what people did, and this is the early internet. So fun and free, literally. No one got paid, and it quickly blossomed into this network. Right, I had a collection of sites with other games and other franchises, and I had a team of people helping me out. And before long, we had traffic, a lot of traffic, 1 million page views per month with ad views, ad hits, and it's such an accomplishment for me, kind of looking back at that, especially since there weren't a lot of people online back then compared to what there are now, right? And so even with all that traffic, you quickly learn that most of it goes into server costs. So you're not really making all that much money. You are making money, but most of it is going into server costs, so you're not making a lot of profit. But you're getting your name out there, and people are starting to learn who you are. And it was just such a fun time, right? And you can actually see it there with the QR, as I mentioned. And kind of wanting to end on that point is that this is the Wayback Machine, right? This is no longer hosted. This is kind of what it looked like. And also having this post on there with this, finding a hosting provider. And what I commented on was that it didn't work out. And that's all I said. And I'm looking back at it, and I had to think about it for a little bit. I was like, oh, that was not a fun thing. That was not a good exchange or interaction that I had. It actually reflected very poorly on me at the time, looking back at it. But back then I wasn't aware of the concept de-escalation sort of thing, and I just got into it with the administrator, and it was a really ugly exchange, and I obviously wouldn't handle it that way these days. But back then, 20 something and early 20 something, and it was just one of those things where I looked at it. I was like, whoa, I actually handled that the way you're supposed to, the professional, right? Because here it is, captured for all eternity on the Wayback Machine, and this is what people see. And so just kind of proud of myself in that regard, because I am a critic of what I post online, and I'll be like, ooh, I wrote that sort of thing, and I like keeping it up there, actually, but in this case, I can't delete it usually. Like if I like keeping it up there if I can delete it, but here I don't have a choice. So it's good that I did the right thing. I did the professional thing, and that is what you see. So just a fun time all around. And like I said, I got my name out there, and it led me to my next adventure here. So, 1 million page views per month. I got some connections in the gaming industry. Shout out to Spencer M. You know who you are. And he set me up with this connection with the CEO of this new company, WildTangent. And, this is kind of like the golden era of my life, right? This is like just right out of college. I quit college. I dropped out of college to help with a startup, and right out of the CEO's basement. And it was just a really magical time where it was like during the .com bubble, before it was a bubble, and everyone was going to make money, everyone was going to be successful internet. But I was able to take my HTML interest and take it further. And I was the first employee in the CEO's basement. And we developed this, all sorts of content around this new technology, which was kind of like the precursor to Silverlight, if you think about it, because it was, Alex St. John was the CEO. He was the inventor of DirectX, and he was just taking that, being smart with it, and bringing it to the web browser. And so we took that and made content, and one of the things that we worked on was this mapping application. It was Google Maps before Google Maps, and actually there was a patent that was made that was sold to Google at some point, and my only regret out of my 4 years I can look at was that I didn't get my name on that patent. And it's probably one of those things where I was implementing it versus architecting it sort of thing. But out of the 4 years, that is the only thing I can look at that's that I probably wish I got my name on that. And the reason why I bring that up is that when you get your name on a patent, that's forever. As long as that's registered with a government sort of thing, you have your name on your you have your name on this patent, and it's registered with a government, and it's resume material, right? So, but everything else was just amazing during that time, and it's something I reflect back on very positively. Going from there, it's one of those things where, I talk about not getting burnt out. Maybe I lost interest because, with layoffs happening, I got laid off on the second round of layoffs with WildTangent, and something that happened in my life at that time was getting more social. And so I started getting into the social aspect of kind of going out to concerts and events, and doing recordings of videos, and also taking photography, pictures, things of that nature, and getting a team of photographers. And I started to learn .NET as well during this time. And one of the first things I did was make this .NET application where it was taking video and transcoding it to these different levels, and then also having a .NET application that took these photos and then uploaded it, sort of like a what you see with Flickr, right? Back in the time. And so kind of cool application with .NET, also with PHP. So I hadn't really gotten to ASP.NET at that point, but I was also kind of exploring .NET in these these applications at the same time. So kind of, with that, having that experience around .NET and these applications, the social life, there really wasn't a way that I can find that I was happy with to monetize that, right? So if you saw that comment there, probably that it was a Facebook before Facebook. That's what a couple people told me, and that kind of stuck with me. And they're probably right. Like if I would have explored that a little bit further, I probably could have made money off of advertising. It just didn't feel right to me because that's what makes Facebook evil, right? Is this advertising, and everyone's just collecting information off of you, and then they're selling it. And I don't like that at all. So I took those skills and I started taking a look around, and I just kind of started the second act of my life. You could say if Doom Shack and WildTangent are the first act, then it's a startup mentality, creating my own thing. Then the second act is this consulting, right? And consulting is different, way different from just doing your own thing and having a startup thing, doing a startup. It's it's a different business model. It is, and it pays really well. And that was what was different about this, is that the money is right there. So there's not really that ownership thing. You're exchanging that ownership for just getting paid really well, and it's different. And what I landed in is kind of like the WildTangent equivalent of consulting, and that's Ascentium. This is in Bellevue, Washington, and for 5 years I was being a consultant in this just amazing company with an amazing culture, an amazing people, and it was just a great experience where I did all this consulting work for .NET and improved my skills, got into Silverlight work, and then Silverlight didn't pan out so well, and that should have been my first clue that Silverlight wasn't going to be what Silverlight should have been, and I got laid off in 2009 from that. But I made a lot of connections there, and that kind of landed me on my feet with my next step here. I just took that with the consulting because just paid so well, and it was just a different mindset. And I didn't really have a product idea. I was going through like side projects, but nothing really stuck. And so I just rolled with the consulting because it just paid so well, right? And that's kind of like the theme here. And what I'll find is that it pays well, but it's unfulfilling. So there's this tension, right? It's like, yeah, I'm making all this money, but I just kind of hate life because I'm not really doing something that I own, and that's been a driving factor for me. I want to have my own product, something that I own, and that's kind of what I did, kind of going through these miscellaneous firms, and kind of going through 2015 up to 2015, kind of doing this thing, but learning .NET this entire time, right? So while doing consulting work, back in 2014, my father had heart surgery. And this was kind of a turning point for me. And it made me think like, I'm out in the Seattle area. I moved out here to make it big on a startup, to have my own, share of a company, equity in a company. And that didn't work out. And I'm kind of doing this consulting thing, which is really not what I moved out here for. And so it just made me kind of reevaluate things. And I just wanted to move back home. I just felt it was time to kind of re-explore things, be back home, be closer to family, and maybe help out a little bit, be a better son, be a better family member. And that's what I did as I moved back in 2014, moved back to Michigan, and thankfully I was working a contract at the time that allowed me to work remote, and I was able to do that. And it was basically for another year. I just put everything into savings, and that's what I did. Is I just finished out all my contracts and basically kind of just looked at the next chapter of my life, which is kind of more like an intermission if you take those two acts. So after that, this is basically the end of that second act, and it's sort of moving into an intermission now. So kind of getting into this intermission a little bit, if Silverlight wasn't going to happen, I kind of wanted to express this desire to Microsoft to make something like Silverlight. So we can't do Silverlight. Let's try it again, but make it better. And, thankfully we did. I feel like we have. But, with Blazor server-side is exactly that, and it's so much better because it actually works everywhere. But back then I wanted to create this site to sort of express this desire, not just me but a lot of other developers, and I created this vote, and you could go there with this QR code, and it was really super popular, and it ended up in my mind being Blazor server-side. And then the other thing I did is I got into open source, right? And I helped out with this repository that was for the extended XML serializer. So the other thing I was really big into was XAML and in XML. And there was this war at the time between XML and JSON, right? And JavaScript object notation language that was kind of like XAML, but not. And so, I wanted a serializer that was kind of like that improved XML. And it was a big learning lesson for me. Long story short, number one, I kind of hijacked Wojciech. Shout out to Wojciech out there. I kind of hijacked his repository, for lack of a better term. I basically just took it over. I just overwrote all his code. I just basically just wrote everything again. None of it's his code anymore, and I feel bad about that. And but it's there. And I wouldn't do that again. It was just one of those things where, it's a learning lesson for me. Like, yeah, you can think that you are a hotshot developer, but when you do that, then you basically write all this code and now you have to maintain it. And so, it's one thing to write the code, but it's another to maintain and support it. And now, there's no ownership with Wojciech there, right? And so I kind of did two things there, and I would never do that again. But, it is what it is. I know people hate that expression. That's the reality of it. It's probably a better way of putting it. But, we have this repository now. If you are looking for an XML serializer that does a little bit more than the built-in native one, then we have it there for you at the QR code. You can check it out. It's in maintenance mode, but if you find a problem, I'll do my due diligence and help you out. We can take it from there. Okay, so moving along here, as I mentioned in the previous sessions, I started getting into cryptocurrency about 2017, and the first thing I did was I'm gonna make a bunch of bots in .NET. I'm gonna make a bunch of .NET bots and make a bunch of money. And I fell flat on my face. I probably would have been a little bit more successful if I had tried a little bit more, really pushed it. But I started to get the sense that, making money off of money is cool, but it's not really all that fulfilling. And I'm kind of back where I started with consulting, right? Same thing. I'm making a bunch of money, but I don't really own anything, and I'm not really doing something I can be proud of, and if I'm proud of it and people really don't see it, sort of thing, and it's just not a product that I own, a public product that I own, like Starbeam is, right? Like something I can show off and people can use and things of that nature. So I just kind of moved on to something else, doing more research, and that led me to the next slide here. And here we are, right? Now it's the third act. So the first act was WildTangent and Doomshack, owning my own thing, being a part of the startup, first employee, sort of having shares, having equity, and then not getting anywhere with that. And then the second act is getting into consulting, and then kind of not feeling fulfilled, making a lot of money, but not feeling fulfilled, and then having a little bit of an intermission. And here's this third act, right? It's a combination of all those things, and we're kind of reconnecting with that high school passion of the art of having that drawing, and now I've got this writing along for the ride as well, and now I have a product that I can show off to the world. It's just a culmination of all the things in my life, and I just feel really positive about it, and I truly feel it's like the third act, right? We're gonna do something here, so definitely very excited. Wow, nearly 25 years of my life here in just over 18 minutes, it looks like. That's way longer than I was anticipating. I was thinking like 5. But here we are. And, I would also say this is really therapeutic, especially with the pandemic. I would strongly encourage it after just going through it, just to kind of brush off the cobwebs, so to speak, and kind of get yourself oriented and on track. Maybe it might be a project that people should consider doing, really. But getting on to the program here, we just got one session left. What took so long? Now we're going to examine what took so long with the 2 years of development of Starbeam 1. See you there.